Good morning.
Hello. Good morning.
Thank you for coming out on this lovely autumn day. Well, we were supposed to have our 20th anniversary celebration today, as you know, but our venerable abbot has got COVID. And he's on recovery. He's doing okay, but he's quarantining. So I don't think we've rescheduled yet, but we will do that and celebrate our anniversary. Yes. So autumn, it's nice. We have distinctive seasons here, quite beautiful, and some lovely fruits ripening. I happen to be fortunate enough to live within a little orchard. And so with these warm days and cool nights, certain fruits get more flavorful, apples and such. I also have a Comise pear, and that's the name of my daughter. So when she was born, 36 years ago, we planted a tree. And we will harvest soon, and she will help me. So, harvest. There's a mushroom festival. Some of you have probably been there. That goes on at Mount Pisgah. So if you have time, go to the mushroom festival. There's a lot of mushrooms that grow in this area. Celebrate autumn. So somewhat the theme focus of this talk is a mosaic, sowing the seeds of peace. Why not? And this topic has been bubbling up for me, just meeting people, being at certain events and so forth, just spontaneously. So I thought, well, and human beings could use a little more focus on the mosaic, sowing the seeds of peace. In June, we had an interesting visit here at the temple. There were 8 Tibetan monks from India, a monastery in India, and they're touring the U.S., doing ceremonies of mandala sand paintings. Some of you may be familiar with that. So they take these fine grains of, traditionally with little bits of gems, semi-precious gems, stones, what have you. And they create a circular design, mandala, which in Sanskrit is a sacred circle. So very intricate. And so the intention is that they build these things, they're praying, and it's a practice for healing. Interestingly enough, the Navajo, indigenous peoples in Arizona, have the same practice that developed completely separately. So they were visiting, and I was at a dinner at a friend's house who happens to be married to a Tibetan woman, and these monks were visiting, and only one spoke English, but I sat with them and had a lovely visit, and I requested that they come over to the temple and have tea, and they were super busy, but they did, and so we invited them over, and Yutone was here, and Dauran, I believe. And so we invited them over, and I requested that they chant the Heart Sutra in Tibetan, which we chanted this morning. So they did, and then we chanted in English, and we had tea. We sat in a circle here and had tea. And it was quite amazing. And they left us several gifts, and one is this lovely embroidered tapestry. Let's see if my arms are long enough. Right? So they gifted this to Budai Temple. Would you be so kind as to read this?
Whoa. Might need another hand.
Yes.
not believe in anything simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in anything simply because it is spoken and rumored by many. Do not believe in anything simply because it is found written in your religious books. Do not believe anything merely on the authority of your teachers and elders. Do not believe in traditions because they have been handed down for many generations. But after observation and analysis, when you find that anything agrees with reason and is conducive to good and benefit of one and all, then accept it, and live up to it. Quote by Buddha. Who knows?
Okay. Sounds like some wholesome advice. Also, Yoichi-san, when you put that on, I have something. Take this scarf and drape it around Julie and Evelyn. That's called a kata. It symbolizes peace. And there you have it to our two elders. And that was a lovely gift. So, peace unfolds. So, a couple of weeks ago, I had noticed in the Eugene Weekly that there was a annual peace celebration in Alton Baker Park. There's actually a dedicated peace park there. Some of you may know about it. I did not know about it. I haven't been to that section of the park for a long time. So near the DeFazio footbridge, there's a couple acres that the city of Eugene has dedicated to this park. And interestingly enough, all of the Nobel laureates of the world, there's a plaque for each one with a picture and some information that's there. Beautiful spiraling stonework, and there. So there's an annual celebration. So I went to that celebration and met some interesting folks, and it's international, so that's happening around the world. So next year, I think it was this is like 2 weeks ago. I'll go to it. And it's very exciting. And Eugene is the only place in the U.S. that has such a thing.
Wow.
So, we are doing good things in this town. And we'll continue to. Yeah, International Day of Peace. And also, these things are bubbling up of recent. Mahatma Gandhi's birthday, he was born 1869, I think, was on October 2nd. Right? And many of you know who he is, maybe all of you. There's been a wonderful film made in the U.S. and then documentary in India and other things. But he was one of our most famous peace activists, and engaged in civil disobedience. Which was pretty profound because there were enough people in India to easily overwhelm the British colonists, but they didn't. So Gandhi advocated civil disobedience. And it was fascinating to me, although I'm sure this occurred in different cultures all around the world. He learned that, he was inspired by that from Henry David Thoreau's writings. Mm-hmm. And many of you are familiar with him. And he wrote about that. He wrote a little essay. And he was jailed for refusing to pay his taxes in protest to slavery, the treatment of indigenous peoples, and the war against Mexico. Henry David Thoreau inspired Gandhi. And Martin Luther King was inspired by Gandhi. Amazing. So, civil disobedience and nonviolence are very powerful. And they're not passive at all, they're very dynamic. And when we sit here doing Zazen, we are practicing that also. And the seeds of war or peace are in each one of us. So, I recall hearing a talk by Thich Nhat Hanh. And he said, yes, the seeds of war and peace are in me, but what do I choose to water? He chooses to water the seeds of peace. Great example. So practicing Zazen, puts us in direct contact with our minds. And that's the root of all the conflict in the world begins there. So Buddha is, in its own modest way, practicing medicine. That's what the Buddha was. He was a healer, really. Practicing medicine, meditation, and it's arising in the mind. You can watch that when we sit in sesshin. Sesshin is, a term for turning towards the mind. And it gives us the strength that when we function in society and in the world, and there's always challenges, one has more ability to be aware rather than reacting. We can act in a way that's helpful. And we have that choice. So Zazen is greatly beneficial in that. So thank you all for coming today and practicing. We do our little part. And various people, you all know various people that have been engaged, whether they're, artists singing or activists or what have you. And I just named a few that are somewhat famous, but of course there are people all around the world that you all know about that are doing one thing or another to contribute to that. It's quite amazing, really. And I was thinking of Rosa Parks, since I brought up Martin Luther King. And, there's a little bronze sculpture of Rosa Parks. Some of you may be aware of that at the bus station, right here in Eugene, commemorating her noble resistance and civil rights action. So, Eugene, you know, we're doing it. A little bit. And two famous people, John Lennon and Yoko Ono, right? Well, some of you know their music and were aware of their activism, but they were, you know, dynamic peace activists and wrote a number of songs, including having a bed-in. They spent a week in bed in public in Amsterdam, and that's very controversial, but it was good. And so wrote a number of songs and were amazing. And I'm sure there are many people doing that now. And I'm not up with popular culture and music at that level, so I don't know who they would be, but I know they're here and they're doing it. However, you know, after John Lennon's death, Yoko Ono, who is an amazing artist and still alive, she's in her 90s, she started the Lennon-Ono Peace Prize, right? So every 2 years there's several awards given to internationally on Peace Prize, given a grant that funds various foundations. And she had a peace tower of light and love built in Iceland. So I hope I get to visit that. And there's a beautiful John Lennon memorial in Central Park. If some of you have been there and seen it, I have many times. The Italian government donated some ceramics and they built a mosaic mandala, a big circular one. And there's a park there called Strawberry Fields. And so it's quite nice. So if you're in New York City, go to Central Park and people are there singing and offering flowers. And I'm so excited about the possibilities of what we all can do on this topic and what people are doing. And so with all these luminous beings in this room, I know there's more ideas bubbling up and that we can bring more medicine to the world. And not only our relationship, of course, with other humans, but with non-humans, with the life, you know, of the planet. The rivers, creeks, the oceans, forests, all the plants down the street. And there's this interesting word to me, symbiotic, symbiology. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. So if you go into old growth forest, the forest is thriving, there's ancient trees, and somehow with symbiosis, the forest knows how to do it, right? Isn't that amazing? So, you know, it's tradition, you know, certainly in India that the yogis and yoginis would go to the forest. So non-human, there's great energy and wisdom in there. So symbiosis. Also, you could say cooperation. And we know that, lots of us do that. invoking the vow to awaken. This is by Menza, a 17th century venerable Zen teacher. So we recite this every day at the temple on Monday through Friday in our evening service, and it's part of the Ambrosia Gate. Our hearts set on awakening, we offer this gift of pure food to you, hungry ghosts from every corner of the Dharma realm, from every country and land without number. You departed long ago. Gather here. Come all you spirits, from earth gods of mountains and rivers to demons and wraiths of the barren wastes. Accept this food given in love and compassion. We pray that each of you in turn offers this gift to all Buddhas, all holy ones, and sentient beings throughout space and time. May all be equally satisfied. It goes on, but I'm going to stop there. Anyway, that's quite a profound bit of writing. And I recall years ago I was sitting here in Seshi meditation retreat, and I heard that, and I go, ooh, we're inviting demons and wraiths, right? Generally speaking, we don't do that as a species. Those are the enemy. So we're inviting demons and wraiths to be transformed. That is quite amazing. So we bring that message out to the world today for medicine, for our species. So usually we open this up to questions. However, we will open it up for anyone that would like to share. They have an insight, an inspiration, an experience, or a question.
I think there's some amount of evidence. I don't know where that evidence is that both Thoreau and Emerson had some access to the Blue Cliff record.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know where to find that, and I don't know where I heard it. But I think Emerson also went to jail with Thoreau.
Uh-huh.
I think so.
Yeah,
and
right.
he was, of course, a Congregationalist minister and poet.
That's right.
Emerson.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think at some point later, when, I'm not sure of the timing, when there was real fear among abolitionists in New England, people were being, I think under maybe the Missouri Compromise, people could actually be arrested for aiding escaped slaves.
Yeah.
And Frederick Douglass had to go to England for that period of time because he was really under threat.
I see.
I know people know who he is, I assume.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yes, I do.
So, and I think they were scared during that period.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know where these references are.
Yeah.
And I might have, embellished some of it, I'm not sure.
Well, thank you.
But it's a very important moment
Yeah.
in American history, and especially in relation to abolitionist movement in New England and slavery, and the power, the manipulation of law by the southern states so that they could actually, do things in the north.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, thank you. It is a very important part of our history. Yes.
Kogen, you talked about the link between Thoreau and Gandhi and Martin Luther King, and something that many may already know, that Martin Luther King and Thich Nhat Hanh became good friends. And as a Nobel laureate, Martin Luther King was able to nominate Thich Nhat Hanh for the Nobel Peace Prize, but he didn't win it.
That's right. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Instead, he became a saint.
One of my favorite T-shirts is one that I bought at the Lennon Center in Liverpool. I was living there and visited Liverpool, and went to Strawberry Fields, the original Strawberry Fields, which was a school, still exists, in the neighborhood where John Lennon grew up. And what was interesting to me is that he grew up in the same city where, back in the 16 and 1700s, Great Britain ran many, many slave ships that would go to Africa, you know, kidnap people, bring them to here, to the colonies, and then take back cotton. And he grew up in that environment of being aware of that. And so I think that the juxtaposition of his whole peace activism was perhaps born from that experience.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Well, if I can say something else
Please.
then. At Potter Street, I don't know, Nealon knows about this also. Remember Gavin, and remember when we used to have the, get all the little groups together, or he would, in Eugene, and have a days-long meditation for peace? Isn't that, is that
I think that might be.
Yeah, and I don't know how many times he did it. There was someone in that group, Potter Street group, named Gavin, who I think he was the primary person. And of course, because we were at Getchin's house in the back room, we had to find someplace that could accommodate. There was a group that were Jan Base's students.
Uh-huh.
There were 2 or 3 groups that he would contact.
Yeah.
So we would have a day of sitting for peace.
Wonderful.
It's an idea.
I say.
All right. Thanks.
And look what it evolved into.
Well, yes, if people don't know, Potter Street's the small group that became this group.
That's right.
I just want to thank you for talking about this today, especially as we roll into the election. And we have seen things and heard things that seem pretty unbelievable. And so, yes, this practice of cooperation and building peace now really seems to have such importance, and that really there's a very significant part of our practice that orients to that. So thank you for opening that at this very kind of fraught moment. It's really important.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that energy is just swirling around, you know. And humans have such great capacity. So we better tap into it.
I think following up a little bit on Myowan's comment is, you know, during Osagaki, we invite the demons in and we offer to feed them and save them. And yet the demons of the human world who are living, many of whom are involved in politics, is one place. How do we hold that? How do we hold that without pushing on it, without being, you know, fighting it, having really intense, painful judgments about it?
Well, it's a good question. I learned an interesting thing from the great spiritual teacher Ram Dass, the American spiritual teacher. And he particularly really disliked certain politicians for good reason.
Yeah.
And he came to the point where he would put their picture on his altar. Right there with his guru and Jesus and all this. Of course, he didn't agree with them, that's not the point.
Right, correct.
But he didn't want to demonize them.
Yeah.
There's a difference. You know, vigorously disagree, but there's a humanity there somewhere. So I would encourage us to do both, you know. Vigorously, you know, do an alternative that's wholesome, but not create a demon out of someone.
Related with Anu's question, I'm wondering about how we can sit in peace when we feel that we're on fire.
That's a good question. Fire can, you know, be transformed into creative energy, right? In thought, word, and deed. And so, otherwise, it's what we're seeing unfold. Now is destructive energy. It's fire, but it's destructive. It's anger. It's us and them. It's always us and them. But it's we. That's we. Well, the fire is we. And so I would say, nurture the fire of we. It's not an us and them, it's a we. It's an organism, living organism.
Coda,
Hey,
it's me again. I think it's important to remember that the demonic energies that manifest in a living sense, that's sort of what we're talking about right now, that these are and that's fire, these are very transformational energies. They're painful and they're destructive, but the destruction is transformative. And there are always unintended and unknown consequences that flow from this intense expression. And so, I think when we look at this election, we might say there's this terrible energy in one place, and yet it's very strong energy. And it is an energy that gets people's attention. It can become very motivational. We don't know what it will be. But I do believe that fire that is painful and strong manifestations, they really are transformative. And we don't know the consequences, but frequently very great changes that can be positive come from them, from that manifestation.
yeah, thank you. That reminds me of a beautiful Indian sculpture from the 11th century, Shiva Nataraj. A lot of you. So it's Shiva in this lovely posture, right, standing, and there's a circle around Shiva, and it's all flames. And I'll bring the sculpture here, and we'll talk about it sometime. We'll have a talk. And it's simultaneously the creation, the sustaining, and the destruction of the universe. This is a profound piece of artwork, and that's what's going on all the time. So where do we put our energy, right?
Kogen, yesterday I was at a demonstration to support the people of Palestine and to end the bombing. So just seeing all that energy there, some of it feels very destructive and very very strong, but at the same time the overarching goal is to disarm and create peace. So seeing those two things mixed together it's really interesting, and it's hard to be there because of some of the the energy and the mix of it's like some kind of adamant forceful energy, but still working for peace and disarmament.
Yes, very, very intense. And then it's it's bound up in us and them. We're a lot of us, just historically as a species. And so one of the medicines of Buddhism is liberation. Liberation right here in this world now, realizing that we're all connected, including the non-human. So spread the message, and we will do it.
I'd like to offer an alternate phrase to non-human, which is more than human.
More than human.
Just a sort of phrase that I think makes a big difference.
We can do it.
Yeah.
She does it. She's a forest being. She's a forest bathing being.
Coaches, I was watching on YouTube this, and I'm going to probably be very unskilled in communicating about this, but it was a man who is an African American man who infiltrated a supremacist talk group to just to what the heck, right? To just figure out, and he eventually he was able to like listen to them and think like about like with compassion and open like an open mind, and that they had their feelings of alienation and judgment for who they were, being white male, because there's a lot of liberal dialogue about that. And he doesn't agree obviously with their premises, but was able to see them as human and have some human conversation and respectful dialogue with some people and make a connection and change. And it's interesting, like what you talk about, how I'm a teacher. I was teaching recently about Martin Luther King Jr. Made a speech about about his eulogy. I don't know if anybody's heard about that, like how he did not want to be recognized for being a Nobel Peace Prize winner or all these awards. He wanted to be remembered as somebody who served humanity and somebody who fought for righteousness and good and peace and visited people in prisons. And I think he was trying to communicate, and my understanding is that I'm not special. Like you all can do this. You all can make a difference in small ways in peace. And this man kind of did the same thing where we tend to get self-righteous about our, like we're right, they're wrong, and we cut off communication. And I guess his point was that like if we can be open to communicating, making connections, we can make change. I don't know, this is what you were talking about.
Yeah, thank you.
Kogen? So I recently had a conversation with a man, a person I know in the community who probably does more compassionate work in a day than the rest of us do in a month. And we were having a conversation about the political situation, and he was expressing perplexity at the persistence of the support on the other side. I'll leave you to decide which side is that. Okay, and he's going on about this, and understand this is an incredibly intelligent, compassionate, active person towards good. Okay, and he's going, why are they so stupid? Why do they hang on to that? Why do they hang on to that? And I said, yeah, we think they're stupid. And he says, yeah, they are stupid, and they think we're, what is it, snobs. And I said, yeah, we are snobs. And it was great. It was a great experience for me because, you know, delusions are inexhaustible, including my own, and it's so much easier to see somebody else's delusions than it is to see my own, and it gave me an opportunity to reflect back on, yeah, we are snobs. When we think they're stupid, we are snobs. And I think that ends all possibility of dialogue.
Yeah.
And that was really a nice lesson for me.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.